Asterisk for centuries, the Vaxari Empire ruled the stars, unquestioned, unchallenged, and cruel. Their greatest tradition? The Great Hunt, a game of blood and sport where weaker species were trophies, not threats. Then they found Earth, classified as primitive, declared unworthy. 15 humans taken. No warning. No mercy. But something went wrong. The prey didn't cower. They didn't beg. They vanished into the wilderness and started hunting back. From shattered tools and raw instinct, they forged weapons. From fear, they found fire. And in the shadows of an alien moon, the galaxy's most feared predators learned one brutal truth. On Earth, we don't run. We fight. And now the Real hunt begins. Asterisk, when predators become prey in the vast expanse of the Andromeda sector, the Vaxari Empire had ruled unchallenged for over 3,000 years. Their sleek, obsidian ships moved through space like deadly shadows, and their tall, reptilian forms struck fear into countless species across the galaxy. The Vaxari had built their civilization on a simple principle. The strong survive, the weak serve, and the weakest provide entertainment. Commander Zexthal stood on the bridge of the hunting vessel Bloodfong, his scaled hands clasped behind his back as he gazed at the blue-green planet rotating slowly below. His yellow eyes gleamed with anticipation. Earth, the third planet from a small yellow star, had been classified as a Class 7 primitive world by their scouts. Perfect for the Great Hunt. Subcommander Keltar, Zexthal's voice hissed through the bridge's recycled air. Report on the specimen collection. The younger Vaxari stepped forward, his scales still bright with youth. Commander, we have successfully captured 15 specimens from various regions of the planet. They call themselves humans, and appear to be the dominant species despite their primitive technology. Zexthal's mouth curved into what might have been a smile on a human face, but looked terrifying on his reptilian features. Excellent. And their capabilities? Limited, sir. They use crude projectile weapons, basic metallurgy, and have only recently achieved spaceflight. Their bodies are soft, their claws non-existent, and they lack any natural armor. The hunting party expects this to be over within a single cycle. The specimens had been taken during their sleep cycle, drugged with Vaxari neural suppressants, and transported to the hunting preserve on Kithera, a moon specially terraformed for such occasions. Each hunt was broadcast live across the Empire, providing entertainment for billions of Vaxari citizens who delighted in watching primitive species attempt to survive against superior predators. Marcus Chun woke to the taste of copper in his mouth, and the sound of alien voices speaking in clicking, hissing tones. The construction foreman from San Francisco tried to move, but found his arms bound with some kind of energy restraint. As his vision cleared, he saw he was in a metallic cage alongside 14 other humans, all looking as confused and terrified as he felt. "Where are we?" whispered a woman with graying hair and steady hands that Marcus immediately recognized as belonging to someone accustomed to crisis situations. "I don't know," Marcus replied, his voice hoarse. "But we're not on Earth anymore." Dr. Sarah Walsh, an emergency room physician from Chicago, pressed her face against the bars of their prison. Through the transparent wall, she could see a landscape that definitely wasn't terrestrial. Purple vegetation swayed in the wind, and 3 moons hung in a lavender sky. "This is impossible," she breathed. "Nothing's impossible until proven otherwise," growled a massive man with hands like tree trunks. Tommy Bear Morrison had been cutting timber in the Pacific Northwest when the lights had appeared. Now he was studying their captors with the patience of a hunter. "Those things took us for a reason." Elena Vasquez, a high school chemistry teacher from Phoenix, was already analyzing the energy restraints. The molecular structure of these bindings appears to be some form of contained plasma. If we could disrupt the magnetic field. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Zexthal himself, flanked by 2 heavily armed guards. The Vaxari commander stood 8 feet tall, his scales a deep emerald color that seemed to absorb light. When he spoke, a translation device rendered his words into English. "Greetings, primitives. I am Commander Zexthal of the Vaxari Empire. You have been selected for the honor of participating in the Great Hunt, a tradition that has entertained our people for millennia. In one standard cycle, you will be released onto the surface of Kithera with basic survival supplies. My hunting party will then pursue you for sport. The humans exchanged glances. Some began to whimper, others to pray. But Marcus noticed that a few, like Bear and Dr. Walsh, were listening intently, gathering information. What happens if we survive? Marcus asked that Zexthal's laugh was like breaking glass. You won't. No primitive species has ever survived longer than 2 cycles. Your soft body's emotional weaknesses and lack of natural weapons make you ideal prey. We expect this hunt to conclude quite quickly. After the Vaxery left, the humans huddled together. Fear was palpable, but so was something else: determination. Dr. Walsh spoke first. We need to work together. I've seen survival situations before, and panic kills faster than any predator. Elena nodded. They're overconfident. That's their first mistake. What's our first move? Asked Jake Rivera, a paramedic from Miami who had been grabbed during his night shift. Bear cracked his knuckles. We survive. Then we show these lizards what apex predators really look like. When the cages opened and the humans were herded onto the surface of Kithera, the Vaxery expected them to scatter in terror. Instead, they saw something that gave even the most experienced hunters pause. The humans moved together, organized, with Marcus naturally taking point while Bear covered their rear. Dr. Walsh tended to the injured, and Elena examined every piece of equipment they'd been given. The basic survival supplies were intentionally inadequate: a few energy bars, some water purification tablets, and primitive cutting tools. But the humans made do, quickly establishing a defensive perimeter in a cluster of the strange purple trees. This vegetation is silicon-based, Elena reported, breaking off a branch. It's incredibly strong but brittle. We can make weapons from it. Within hours, the humans had fashioned spears, clubs, and even primitive traps. Bear showed them how to read the terrain, while Dr. Walsh taught basic field medicine. Marcus organized watch schedules and patrol routes with military precision, despite never having served in the armed forces. The first Vaxery hunting party approached at dawn, expecting to find scattered, terrified humans. Instead, they walked into a carefully planned ambush. Jake Rivera, hidden in the canopy above, dropped onto the lead hunter with a sharpened branch, driving it through the gap in the alien's armor. The Vaxery's scream echoed across the landscape as Bear emerged from the underbrush, wielding a club made from crystallized tree sap. The hunters became the hunted. By the end of the first day, 3 Vaxery were dead, and the rest had retreated in confusion. Subcommander Keltar watched the feeds from his ship in growing alarm. Commander, this isn't normal behavior. Most species spend the first cycle hiding and crying. These humans, they're fighting back. Zexthal snarled. They're primitives. A few lucky kills mean nothing. Double the hunting party's size. But luck had nothing to do with it. The humans had spent the night studying their enemies, learning their tactics, and preparing for the next wave. Elena had figured out how to disrupt the Vaxery's energy shields using the planet's magnetic field. Dr. Walsh had discovered that the alien's healing gel could be weaponized into a caustic acid. And Marcus had realized that the hunter's greatest weakness wasn't physical, it was psychological. The Vaxery had never encountered prey that fought back with intelligence and coordination. They were used to species that ran, hid, and died. But humans were different. They adapted, learned, and most importantly, they remembered that as the second day dawned on Kithera, the 15 humans were no longer prey. They had become something the Vaxery had never faced before: a coordinated, intelligent, and increasingly dangerous enemy. The hunt was about to become a war, and the Vaxery were beginning to realize they had made a terrible mistake. That in the cold depths of space, Earth continued its rotation. Unaware that its children were about to teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. The age of humanity was about to begin, and it would be written in the blood of those who had dared to hunt them for sport. When humans stopped running, the dawn of the third day on Kithera brought with it a silence that unnerved even the most experienced Vaxery hunters. Commander Zexthal stood in the command center of his ship, staring at the tactical display that showed the locations of his hunting parties. Or rather, the locations where his hunting parties should have been. Report, he demanded. That Subcommander Keltar's voice trembled slightly. Sir, we've lost contact with Squad 7, 9, and 12. Squad 4 reported taking casualties before their signal went dark. The humans, they're not where they're supposed to be. On the surface below, the 15 humans had undergone a transformation that would have been impossible to predict. They had stopped running, stopped hiding, and instead had begun to hunt their hunters with a methodical precision that spoke to something deeper than mere survival instinct. Marcus Chen crouched behind a formation of crystallized trees, his face painted with mud and crushed purple vegetation for camouflage. In the 3 days since their capture, he had evolved from a construction foreman into something approaching a military commander. His eyes, once concerned only with building schedules and safety protocols, now held the cold calculation of a predator. Bear, what's the situation on the perimeter? He whispered into a communication device they had jury-rigged from salvage Vaxery equipment. Tommy Morrison's voice crackled back through the makeshift radio. 2 more of their hunting parties approaching from the northeast. They're moving in that same arrogant formation as before. Want me to take them? Negative. Let them come to us. Elena, are the traps ready? Dr. Elena Vasquez had spent the night transforming the alien landscape into a death maze. Using her knowledge of chemistry and physics, she had created explosive devices from the silicon-based vegetation, pressure-sensitive spikes that could penetrate Vaxery armor, and even managed to reverse-engineer their energy weapons. All set, Marcus. The moment they enter the kill zone, we'll have them. Dr. Sarah Walsh was no longer just tending to wounds, she had become their intelligence officer. I've been monitoring their communications. They're scared, Marcus. Really scared. They keep calling us aberrant and impossible. The humans had established their base in a natural cave system that Elena had fortified with salvage technology. What had once been a simple shelter was now a fortress, complete with weapon manufactories, communication arrays, and holding cells. Because the humans had done something no other species in the Great Hunt had ever accomplished, they had taken prisoners to the deepest part of the cave, a young Vaxery hunter named Yextal Hung, suspended in restraints made from his own people's technology. His emerald scales had paled to a sickly yellow, and his eyes darted constantly toward the humans who moved around him with casual efficiency. Please, he whispered in broken English, having learned enough of their language to beg. I was just following orders. I never wanted to hurt anyone. Jake Rivera, the paramedic from Miami, looked up from the alien medical equipment he was studying. Tell us about your ship's defenses. Help us end this, and maybe we'll consider letting you live. I can't betray my people. Elena emerged from the shadows, holding a device that hummed with barely contained energy. Your people declared war on us the moment they decided we were prey. You can help us end this quickly, or we can extract the information we need. Your choice. The psychological warfare was as effective as the physical tactics. The Vaxery had never encountered prey that could torture them for information, use their own weapons against them, or worse, show them mercy only to use it as a weapon. These humans were rewriting the rules of the Great Hunt in the most terrifying way possible. Above, Commander Zexthal received reports that made his blood run cold. What do you mean they've taken the orbital communication array? Sir, Squad 15 was ambushed while investigating the array station. The humans somehow infiltrated their position, and Keltar's voice broke. And what? They didn't just kill them. Sir, they studied them, dissected them, learned how our technology works. They're using our own equipment against us. The truth was even worse than Keltar feared. The humans hadn't just learned to use Vaxery technology, they had improved it. Elena's understanding of chemistry had allowed her to enhance their energy weapons output by 30%. Bear's practical knowledge of engineering had shown them how to build better armor from salvaged materials, and Marcus's natural leadership had forged them into a fighting unit that was becoming more dangerous with each passing hour. Dr. Walsh emerged from the communication array with information that changed everything. I've been monitoring their fleet communications. This isn't just a hunting party, Marcus. There are hundreds of ships out there, and they're not all here for us. What do you mean? They've been doing this for thousands of years, capturing species, hunting them, broadcasting it for entertainment. We're not the first, and we weren't supposed to be the last. Her eyes hardened. But we're going to be. The humans had discovered something that would have horrified their captors if they had known they were natural soldiers, not in the sense of being trained for war, but in the sense of being evolved for survival against impossible odds. Every human carried within them the genetic memory of ancestors who had survived ice ages, predators, plagues, and each other. When pushed to the brink, they didn't break, they became something more dangerous. Here's what we're going to do. Marcus announced to the group, we're going to take their ship. The audacity of the plan was breathtaking. 15 humans, armed with improvised weapons and salvage technology, were going to assault a starship crewed by hundreds of trained alien warriors. It should have been suicide, but the humans had advantages the Vaxery couldn't comprehend. They could adapt to any situation, learn from any mistake, and most importantly, they fought not just for survival, but for each other. The bond between them had transformed from mere cooperation into something approaching a family unit. They would die for each other, and that made them exponentially more dangerous than any individual warrior. Night fell on Kythera. The humans began their final preparations. They had spent 4 days learning everything they could about their enemies, and now they were ready to graduate from hunted to hunter. The Vaxery had expected entertainment, but they were about to get an education in what it meant to be an apex predator. Bear Morrison adjusted his improvised armor and checked his weapons one final time. He said, quietly, I used to think the scariest thing in the forest was a grizzly bear protecting her cubs. What changed your mind? Dr. Walsh asked. Bear smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. I realized that humans protecting their pack are a lot scarier than any bear. Above them, the Vaxery ship waited in orbit, its crew unaware that their prey had become their doom. The great hunt was about to end, but not in the way anyone had expected. The humans were coming, and they were bringing with them a lesson the galaxy would never forget. When Earth remembers its children-to-orbital communication array hummed with power as Elena Vasquez made final adjustments to the salvage Vaxery transmitter. Her fingers, steady from years of delicate chemistry experiments, manipulated alien technology with growing confidence. Around her, the other humans worked with the focused intensity of people who knew they had one chance to change everything. Are you sure this will reach Earth? Marcus asked, his voice carrying the weight of command he had never asked for, but had naturally assumed. Elena nodded, her eyes reflecting the glow of the alien displays. The Vaxery communication network spans the entire galaxy. If we can break through their encryption, we can send a message anywhere. The question is whether anyone on Earth will believe it. Dr. Sarah Walsh looked up from the medical scanner she had been studying. They'll believe it. Earth has protocols for this kind of contact. They've been preparing for the possibility of hostile alien contact for decades. Bear Morrison, now wearing armor crafted from fallen Vaxery hunters, secured the perimeter with Jake Rivera. Better make it fast. I'm picking up movement from the main ship. They're going to try to retake this position. Marcus keyed the transmitter, his construction worker's hands surprisingly gentle on the alien controls. This is Marcus Chun, United States citizen, speaking from somewhere in the Andromeda sector. If anyone on Earth is receiving this, we need immediate assistance. 15 humans have been abducted by a hostile alien species called the Vaxery. We are currently fighting for our lives on a moon designated as Kythera. These aliens have been hunting other species for entertainment for thousands of years. They picked the wrong prey this time. The message raced across the void, traveling through subspace communication networks that connected distant stars. On Earth, deep within the Cheyenne Mountain complex, alarms began to sound in the classified monitoring stations that had been listening for exactly this type of signal for 50 years. General Patricia Morrison, no relation to Bear, stood in the command center, her steel-gray eyes fixed on the display, showing the source of the transmission. Confirms signal origin and authenticity. Ma'am, the signal is definitely extraterrestrial in origin, but the voice patterns match human vocal cords. DNA verification from the audio sample confirms North American genetic markers. The general's expression hardened. Are you telling me that aliens have abducted American citizens? Yes, ma'am. And based on the content of the message, they're being hunted for sport. What happened next would become legend in military circles. Within 6 hours, the largest military mobilization in human history was underway. The Space Defense Initiative, a program so classified that most world leaders didn't know it existed, activated protocols that had been decades in the making. The USDF Retribution, humanity's first true warship, launched from a hidden facility on the far side of the moon. Its crew of 300 had trained for this moment their entire careers. Behind it came the Vengeance, the Fury, and the Reckoning, each one a testament to humanity's capacity for both engineering excellence and creative destruction. Captain Elena Rodriguez, who shared only a name with the chemistry teacher fighting for her life on Kythera, stood on the bridge of the Retribution as it engaged its experimental faster-than-light drive. Set course for the Andromeda sector. Maximum burn. Back on Kythera, the humans were making their final preparations for what they all knew would be either their greatest triumph or their final stand. The Vaxery had responded to their communication hijack by sending every available warrior to retake the orbital array. But the humans were no longer the frightened prisoners they had been 6 days ago. They were something new, something dangerous. Marcus coordinated the defense from the command center they had established in the heart of the array. Elena, how long until our message reaches Earth? It should have arrived hours ago, but even if they received it, help is at least days away. We need to hold out until then. Bear's voice crackled over the communication system. Contact. Multiple bogies approaching from the south. Looks like they're bringing everything they have. The battle that followed would be analyzed by military historians for generations. 15 humans, armed with improvised weapons and salvage technology, held off wave after wave of Vaxery assault troops. They used the environment against their enemies, turning the orbital array into a fortress of death. Every choke point became a killing field, every corridor a trap-doctor. Walsh, her hands steady despite the chaos around her, treated wounded humans with one hand while operating captured Vaxery weapons with the other. Jake, I need you to take over the medical station. I'm going to help Elena with the heavy weapons. The emergency room physician had discovered that her skills in trauma surgery translated surprisingly well to battlefield tactics. She could read the flow of combat like a medical chart, identifying weak points and applying pressure where it would do the most damage. Elena had become something approaching a mad scientist, combining her chemistry knowledge with alien technology to create weapons that the Vaxery had never encountered. Explosive devices that turned their own armor into shrapnel, chemical compounds that ate through their shields, and energy weapons that had been modified beyond their original specifications. But it was Marcus who had become the true terror of the battlefield. The construction foreman, who had once worried about safety protocols, was now a tactician who could read the Vaxery's formations like building blueprints. He knew where to place his people for maximum effect, how to use the terrain, and most importantly, how to make every shot count. Commander Zexthal led the final assault personally, his elite guard around him. The Vaxery commander had watched his hunting party destroyed by what should have been helpless prey, and his reptilian mind could not accept the reality of what was happening. They are primitives, he roared to his warriors. They cannot defeat us. We are the apex predators of the galaxy. But as his forces fought their way through the orbital array, Zexthal began to understand that he had been wrong about everything. These humans didn't fight like prey. They fought like something that had evolved specifically to kill predators. Every movement was calculated, every action designed to maximize damage to the enemy while minimizing their own losses. The breakthrough came when Bear Morrison, using a combination of brute strength and tactical cunning, managed to breach the Vaxery command center. The massive lumberjack had crafted armor from fallen enemies, and weapons from their own technology, transforming himself into something that looked like death itself. "This is for every species you've hunted," he growled, driving a crystallized spear through Zexthol's armor. The Vaxery commander's death broke something in his remaining forces. They had never faced an enemy that could kill their leaders, use their own weapons against them, and worst of all, show them that they were not the apex predators they believed themselves to be. The last of the Vaxery resistance crumbled. The humans heard a sound that made their hearts soar. The distinctive hum of human spacecraft engines. The Retribution and her sister ships had arrived, and with them came the fury of an entire species that had just learned its children were being hunted for sport. Captain Rodriguez's voice echoed through the orbital array. "This is the United Earth Defense Force. We're here to take you home." But the humans who had survived the Great Hunt were no longer the same people who had been abducted. They had become something new, something that would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. They were the first of Earth's warriors, and they carried with them a message that would echo across the stars. The age of humanity had begun, and it would be written in the blood of those who had dared to hunt them. The human fleet secured the system and began the process of documenting the Vaxery's crimes. Word of what had happened began to spread across the galaxy. The story of 15 humans who had turned the tables on their captors became legend, but more importantly, it became a warning. Earth had revealed itself to the galaxy not as a primitive world to be exploited, but as the home of apex predators who would protect their own at any cost. The Great Hunt was over, but the real hunt was just beginning. And this time, humanity would be doing the hunting.